Hey everybody, welcome back to WeekCap, the show where we break down politics, sports, and everything in between. This is our NBA All-Star Edition, and let's just say we've got some mystery in the air. So let's definitely get into all of that. So, Greer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I just came from church, which is why I'm all dressed up, and it was Red Dress Sunday in honor of Heart Health Awareness. And so I've got my red tie on. I'm excited for this conversation. I know we have NBA All-Star Weekend to talk about, and there's always something for us to talk about these days, politically, culture-wise. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. How are you, though?
I am doing well. I'm hanging in. I'm still recovering from last week at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, everything and all. And I wish I could have been in San Francisco for All-Star Weekend, but I need a whole lot to do this back to back. It's a lot. So but it's fun though, nonetheless. It's
It is.
of
Yeah,
this.
the Eagles are still getting a bunch of attention. I mean,
Yeah,
parades and Jalen Hurts went right to Disney World, I think. I know he's tired too. So I
oh yeah.
hope y'all both get time to rest and reflect this week.
You have to for sure. But let's get right on to it. So of course, I don't think we'll ever have a show as long as we're doing this, that doesn't involve Trump in any regard. So that's probably always going to be the headline grabber until 2029 at the very least, or if something happens in between, impeachment, whatever the case may be. But until then, this is what we got. So Trump and the first buddy, Elon Musk. Trump had a Trump had a recent Fox News interview responding to critics claiming Elon Musk is in charge, which has raised some eyebrows. What do you make of that, Greer?
Elon Musk is definitely in charge. I think it's going to come to a head at some point, and I think Trump's going to get tired of it because he likes to be the big one in the room. But I definitely think Elon Musk is in charge, and I think that's problematic.
It absolutely is because one, just he's a questionable, interesting character to begin with. You couple that with just all of his business dealings and just the fact that he's not necessarily the most above board person to begin with, and we know that there's probably some questionable things that he did in order to help get Trump,
Right.
depending on
Exactly.
where you fall on that spectrum. I'm not going to necessarily dive into illegal machines and all that stuff that you see on social media, but he's not necessarily the most cleanest guy out there. Let's just be honest about that.
Well, it just doesn't pass the smell test, Clay. I mean, you got this new, I think, pretty new deal with the government between Tesla and the government for $400 million. And then you've got Elon Musk, and I'm sure he has other government contracts and he's involved in SpaceX. And I'm not saying that those two companies are necessarily bad or don't have any positive qualities, but when you have such control over so much in this country, and yet you're not confirmed by the Senate, and yet you're running the show behind the scenes. That just doesn't seem right to me. I understand the president has a wide berth and a wide authority to appoint people and to choose people to be on his staff. But Elon Musk, one, he's weird. Two, he seems to be a little bit all over the place. Bringing his son to the Oval Office, he doesn't seem to be taking this seriously. And then third, to your point, I just don't know what that relationship with Trump is going to look like, and I don't know how this serves the interests of the American people. I just feel as though there's this whole agenda, basically Project 2025, which Trump tried to say he had no idea about. It's all coming to a point here with Elon Musk running the show, with these other conservative, quote unquote, government leaders working to really pass policies that further marginalize Americans. So I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I do think we're in a dangerous time here when it comes to democracy in this country. Do you
Yeah,
have more thoughts?
have you heard about the government layoffs? Obviously, that's been going on, or that's about to go on and such. And I had seen that. I had seen a reel on Instagram last night about how Gen X, who would be most impacted by these government layoffs, now have to pivot and shift because there was always this idea that if you have a government job, you're set for life. But we kind of know that's not necessarily the case anymore. So I just found that very, very profound. Just to say, let's say the least, because government jobs help build the Black middle class. We certainly know that, and it's definitely has provided a lot of clear wealth, or at the very least, security for a lot of families over time. So these what Doge is doing, which is kind of funny how Doge has even become part of our lexicon in the past couple of weeks. Like it's been around forever. It's really doing. We're really seeing the effects of this. So it's just interesting to just to look into that. What do you think about that, Greer?
I think it's very interesting. And even goes beyond interesting. I was watching The View the other day, and Whoopi Goldberg is just so anti-Trump, and she said that I'm gonna do whatever it takes to not go along with this agenda. So she said, I'm not even calling it Doge, I'm calling it doggy, because they're a bunch of dogs trying to upend democracy. I mean, yes, this whole phrase waste, fraud, and abuse, everybody's talking about it. It's been around forever. Nobody likes overspending. Nobody likes excess spending in government. That doesn't sound like a great idea to most people. However, Republicans have made that their thing, that Democrats are just wasteful and that we are laying people off because they weren't fit for the job. And they're just lies. That's not true. That only Democrats wastefully spend, that all of these people, I think, as you mentioned, it's thousands of federal government employees are bad employees. Or they say, oh, these people have been working from home since COVID, so that means they're bad employees. I mean, that just doesn't logically make sense. Whatever your views are on work from home, that doesn't make any sense. And so, as I think you alluded to, whether it's Gen X or Black folks in particular, the federal government employs many people and many marginalized folks, racially marginalized and Black folks, or maybe even some younger folks who have now looked to the government for that stability or some of the federal government work benefits. And so to have these people being laid off just on a whim because you think the federal government needs to downsize, I'm just not sure that that is appropriate. Again, I do think this is a bit of a distraction, and I think that we really need to look at what policies are being passed. Another example of Elon Musk with his hands in the government is this FAA aviation stuff. I think I saw a story earlier today about another plane crash or another plane malfunction. Again, query whether that's because of everything that's happened and we're more attentive and knowledgeable now, or if something is really going on. But we need to look at these policies that are impacting people's lives. And layoffs do impact people's lives and livelihoods. But what is happening in our communities that the Trump administration is causing? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of chaos, especially in the Latina community with ICE right now. I mean, I think this weekend it was that Dr. Phil is somehow some sort of political reporter now, and he did a sit-down interview with the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, who just had his case dismissed, which I'm sure we'll get into, and
Yeah.
Tom Homan, who's the director of immigration or the secretary of something. I'm like, what is going on? We've got the mayor of New York, we've got Eric Adams, and we've got basically the person who oversees ICE sitting down and talking about how to work together and how immigration is really a top issue right now. People are trying to afford food. People are trying to make sure they can send their kids to college. People are trying to ensure that they can care for their elderly family members. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, exactly. What are we talking about? Because we're now we're now looking at. I haven't even bothered to even look at egg prices in the supermarket because I'm just not going to do that. Just like I don't look at gas prices when they're high. There's no point in looking at it. You're going to get it or you don't. You're not going to get it. We're not going to we're not going to be the Flintstones here. On our running on our feet. So
Right.
I'm not even going to look. So I just make that work within my budget. But nevertheless, now there's talks of a bird flu pandemic and such, and this is going to add more to the eggs already being high. So, and we're coming up on 5 years of the COVID pandemic declaration. So, and this
Yeah,
is
I wanted
yeah,
to ask you more about that. I wanted to
yeah,
hear from you
yeah,
when it comes to health and healthcare, because Robert F. Kennedy was confirmed as the Secretary of Health and Human
yeah,
Services. And I'll pose this to you. I also heard on The View last week that Bill Gates did an interview with them, and he said that he foresees another pandemic like COVID happening soon, and it has something to do with animals and diseases. And so he posed the question, is America ready for another COVID? What's your answer?
I don't
Robert F. Kennedy leading us through a pandemic? How about that?
know. He said they confirmed RFK Jr. as HHS Secretary while Trump orders new tariffs amid soaring inflation. So this is the thing. The thing about this is, yeah, I don't want to say we're in trouble, but this ain't good. I mean, we saw what happened not 4 years ago, but 5 years ago. And honestly, I would probably would trade that Trump administration for this one that we currently have. Because at least we had some good guardrails in place. We have complete buffoons and clowns running the circus now. Uh,
Right.
and I don't want another COVID. I mean, hopefully we don't get up to the severity of that, but reality is this. I mean, we have had pandemics not to a degree of COVID, so I would not call off a chicken flu pandemic, but to the degree of what we've had, I don't think so. But it doesn't also help that we have this buffoonery, quite frankly, in charge, which could exacerbate a chicken flu to a COVID-like scale of a pandemic. If that answers that question, I know I'm kind of sounding all over the place here, but we don't have sane, competent leadership. So where even small thing, a small pandemic could be ballooned into even a much larger one. I mean, I hope you still have masks and sanitizers in your stockpile, Greer, because I sure still do. I mean, and
I got an on-the-go test right here.
I don't even know if that's even updated for chicken flu. That's a different strain altogether. That probably won't even be detected with a COVID test. But
Yeah, you're right.
reality of reality is this: we're not prepared. We're not secure. We think we are, but it would surprise me if Trump removed any Biden COVID pandemic protections in place already, which haven't even been covered. So I don't feel good one way or another. And not to mention, you're trying to end remote work in many forms as we know it. So we ain't prepared. And on top of soaring inflation and the layoffs, nah, you better get ready to drop another stimulus. I'm just saying. But hey,
Mm,
let's
mm.
let's hope we don't even go there. But
Yeah.
we had to be real. This is what we have in place. This is what the circumstances are. So
That's
yeah,
right. Yeah, and we've got to adapt and move forward. And as I always say on this show, and as we talk about Clay, community is going to be key, right? Staying in touch with the people you care about and love. Just one update before we move on. I mentioned another plane crash just for the audience. So there was unfortunately a plane crash here in Georgia late last night, and two people died. It was a small single engine plane that crashed shortly after it took off. So I don't know what's going on, but that is something not to scare people, but to be aware of. I think we certainly need to shine some more light on aviation regulation and safety, right? Not just regulating for regulation's sake, but to make sure that our airways are secure and that people can fly safely, travel, have fun. But something is in the air. I don't know what it is. So I just wanted to
yeah.
address that before we move on
But
forward.
absolutely. I mean, if we have to create a grassroots movement where we are protesting and mobilizing outside FAA offices, so be it. Because I honestly think it's going to have to come to that. Because if I see another story, something's going to have to get done before it gets worse, even worse. That's how I feel. And it's not like we have Kamala Harris in office right now. So therefore, we're going to have to mobilize and create grassroots movement to stage protests and demand meetings and accountability outside FAA offices. Matter of fact, I'll even post it on my social media accounts because I want to be able to put a stamp on this before this being envelops, it gets worse. Just like we were just talking about with the chicken flu, we had to be proactive this time around and not reactive. So that's how I feel. I think
Yeah.
you better get your shoes, you better get your marching boots. And I know we're tired of doing all that, but we have to be strategic, as I always say, with our protests we're going to have to demand accountability and safety, and which is crazy enough with the FAA through a grassroots movement.
Yeah. I mean,
And
you're right. You're right. We're going to have to protest. We're going to have to make noise. We even talked about that today at my church, New Birth Missionary Baptist Church here in Atlanta, Georgia, that um, it is so important that we don't lose hope. And to your point, that we strategically protest or boycott or do what it takes to really show these people in positions of power that we care about these issues. To your point, you don't have faith in your man from Real World, the Secretary of Transportation.
I say every day, yep.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. You said it earlier. It's a bunch of clowns who are in these top governmental positions, but they actually have power and control over our lives as American people. And so it's important that people understand the system so that we can protest it in strategic ways. And so Clay and I will work on that, and we'll definitely help you understand just what's at stake here and the ways that you can get involved in your local communities, whether it's at your FAA offices, ensuring that people still have access to health and safety in your communities because this stuff is really important. I know it is draining to always be talking about it, and we're going to talk about other subjects here today, but we do want you all to be informed and encouraged that when we work together, we can really make a difference on these issues. But when it comes to health and when it comes to safety, those issues are too important to stay silent about.
Yeah, and I'm going to post later on in my stories or wherever, or everywhere, the address to, I'm being serious, I'm not even joking. I'm actually looking at it as we're speaking on a different screen here. So 800 Independence Avenue Southwest, room 300 East, Washington, D.C., 20591. And I'll even post the district offices too in Atlanta, LA, wherever. Heck, I might even just do the same for HHS because, yeah, this ain't
I
looking.
mean, it's we really need to know what is going on, right? Why are these planes crashing and what are they going to do about it? Does what they're going to do about it make sense? We're repealing words like transgender and we're removing protections for marginalized people out of policies off of websites. What is going on? So I think yes, health and safety, especially transportation safety, really should be top of mind for people right now, and we should demand to know what's going on and what's being done to fix these issues. But
Atlanta 1, 1701, Columbia Avenue, College Park. You
there you
know,
go.
so
So
yeah.
we'll post these on our social media. Feel free to tap in and go have meetings and raise some of your concerns with these leaders because it matters. We want all of you out there to stay safe and healthy.
Now let's talk about Eric Adams. Since you brought it up, and I was going to bring it up too. What are your thoughts on that before we dive a little more into that?
Just being in law school, it's hard for me to understand what led other than politics, what led to the dismissal of this case against him. I think it's very important to note the response that went viral from some of the people who were asked to dismiss this case. And I guess they ended up doing so, or maybe they went around these people. But it's troubling to me that we're dismissing cases and using quid pro quo to do so, right? If you do this for us, then we're not going to prosecute you. That's very dangerous. And so, for the people out there, just the basic understanding here, the Justice Department, the federal DOJ had a case against Eric Adams. They moved to dismiss it. And just so people know, this filing of dismissal, it doesn't end the high profile case. A federal judge must approve the decision, but I think it's pretty likely that that's going to happen. And so this decision by the Justice Department to dismiss the case, to not focus on it as much, it led to the resignations of at least seven federal prosecutors. And I'll pull it up here in a second, but one of the federal prosecutors, who I believe is a conservative who served in the military, went to law school, graduated top of his class, he had a pretty scathing letter that he wrote about his decision. So he resigned. He didn't feel this decision was right, and he resigned. And his letter was very scathing in what he said. I think to just kind of wrap this up, what is most troubling here, and I mentioned this earlier with Dr. Phil and Tom Homan, is that Eric Adams, first of all, he's never been my favorite. It's the way he's cozying up to this administration. And for a few years now, he's used immigration to show that, hey, I can get conservative support, this and that. But let's talk about the humanity, right, of this issue. Are we still putting human beings first? Are we trying to, yes, come to an agreement and enact a solution that all parties can be happy with, but it needs to be a solution that will work and a solution that won't further marginalize anyone? And so I think that Eric Adams has a long way to go when it comes to that. But I do want to read this letter here that was written by Assistant U.S. Attorney Hagan Scotton. He was a prosecutor up in New York, and he said any assistant U.S. attorney would know that our laws and traditions in this country do not allow using the prosecutorial power to influence other citizens, much less elected officials in this way. And then this is the really scathing part. If no lawyer within earshot of the president is willing to give him that advice, then I expect the Justice Department will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your motion. And then he ended the letter by saying, but it was never going to be me. And to me, to see federal prosecutors resigning in this way and writing letters in this manner is just striking. That we're asking federal prosecutors to dismiss cases that they've worked hard on because people like the mayor of a city in the United States is going to give the government some sort of benefit. I mean, what are your thoughts? I know I spoke for a while there, but
Yeah,
I do think it's interesting just as a current law student.
I'm gonna say this. I'll let you have the legal aspect of that. Only because legalities can be pretty complex and very contextualized, very expensive. So I will just say this. I believe he was in Trump's ear. I definitely do believe that that definitely made a huge difference. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me if he even wanted Trump to win deep down, so he can essentially get off or have these charges cleared. He never seemed too worried, at least publicly, about these charges or whatnot. We never even saw a mugshot. I actually did. I couldn't find one. That's the truth. Rule Eric Adams mugshot is not even public. That told me everything I need to know right there. I mean, Trump wasn't going to get a mugshot until Bonnie Willis made him take one. So
Right.
let's just be real about that. So if there is one, we don't have access to it. But I say
And you're
that
right. I was just, we fact check in real time on this show, but yeah, he was fingerprinted. He had his mugshot taken, and then he
public.
pleaded not guilty in court last year. So you're right. Where is that?
Yeah, I literally have tried digging even through like a Reddit site, nothing. I couldn't even find a TMZ leak, nothing. So it's very airtight if it does indeed exist. Well, if it's they say he had one taken, it's they made sure they didn't get out. That's the truth on that. But I believe he's going to run for. No, he is going to run for re-election. I believe he's going to run as Republican. Ain't no Democrat going to go near him. That's a fact.
Wow. Wow. So you think on this case, just to tie this up with a bow, you think there was a little bit of, I don't know, would you call it collusion going on or some secret partnerships between
Oh,
Adams and the Trump folks?
absolutely, without question. I'll go ahead and say that right now. Hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how these elected officials, even Democrats, do respond when the elected officials catch themselves in a bit of hot water. And we saw this with Senator Bob Menendez. I don't know if you followed that story, but he out of New Jersey, I think he was selling gold or something to some people overseas, and there was some corruption charge. And he's going to go to prison, federal prison, for I think over 10 years. And he, a Democrat, asked Trump for a pardon, or if he maybe not asked Trump for a pardon, but right after Trump was inaugurated, he started weaving this tale of, oh, the Justice Department is political, and I see now what President Trump is talking about when it comes to the way that the Justice Department goes after people like senators. Dude, you got caught. That's why you're doing this. And so I think it's going to be very interesting, to your point, to see how people move over the next 3.5 years, um, to get on Trump's good side just in case something happens, even though they don't align with Trump politically. And maybe they do align with him more politically than we think.
Yeah, I completely I'm with you there entirely, for sure. But well, we can get this on a much at another time, but I believe Andrew Cuomo's gonna eventually run against him, and ultimately will the fast forward will be him out to become the next mayor of New York. And it's going to be a more or less the lesser of two evils, and Cuomo will be the lesser of the two evils. But we can
Mm.
discuss your mayoral race at a much later date and time, but that's a whole topic right there in itself. But yeah, just your immediate thoughts on that prediction by me.
Say that one more time.
Yes, what are your thoughts on that prediction of mine there about
Cuomo. Oh, okay.
the mayoral?
Yeah, I've seen that in the news, and people have been speculating about whether or not Andrew Cuomo is going to run for mayor, and I could see it. For folks that don't know, Andrew Cuomo, former U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, further former governor of New York, and yeah, well, he says that a lot of people are asking him to run for mayor, and I just wonder what that race would look like. Um, Andrew Cuomo's brother, Chris Cuomo, used to work at CNN, and now he works at I don't even remember where, News Nation or something.
Mm-hmm.
But Andrew Cuomo had a little bit of scandal. I think there was some sexual assault allegations as well as a mismanagement of nursing homes in New York during COVID-19. And so I think that will definitely play a role and come up in the campaign if he is to run against Eric Adams. I don't know. I think it might be a close race for whatever reason. There are a lot of New Yorkers who like Eric Adams. Maybe it's his tough on crime mentality, mindset, but I don't disagree with your prediction.
Yeah, but we'll get into that much later. But
Yeah, that's a whole nother show.
yeah, just to kind of put a bow on our political segments here. But Trump insists his mandate is ironclad, yet he won the popular vote by just a couple percentage points, leaving nearly half the country unconvinced. And when he claims the power, there's a ripple effect. On one side, we see policies that are shaking the economy. On the other, a fervor for economic boycotts led by voices like your pastor Jamal Bryant. So it is a battleground of ideas. But just shifting on a rather much lighter note, we're going to talk about All-Star Weekend now. So, have you watched any of the All-Star Weekend or at least followed the weekend of festivities and all, Greer?
I'm glad you added that caveat at the end. I have not watched live. I had a busy week just school work wise and preparing for a few trips here with school, and so I did not tune in live. But my brother texted me last night, I believe, and said, "Are you watching the dunk contest?" And I was not, but I quickly went up to or went online to pull up some clips, and wow, it was quite interesting. I saw that a car was involved there. I think it was Mac McClung who jumped over a car and finished the dunk. I mean, that was pretty awesome. And then I did see that Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama were disqualified from the skills contest for trying to cheat somehow. So I thought that was, funny. But I have not tuned in much. I guess the game or the games are tonight. So I do plan to tune in or at least have them on in the background while I prepare for the week. What about you?
They had a dunk contest last night. I did not watch. I mean, I caught some of the highlights of the rising stars, talents, and everything else on social media and on YouTube. But I'm gonna be honest, they ain't enough for me to tune in. I had saw an Instagram post from Roland Martin saying we're gonna need to have AI do the dunk contest because these boys are struggling. I swear. I laughed at that because it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true because it's not like it used to be. And I don't want to put this old elder millennial hat on, but I come up at a time where we had Vince Carter, your fellow UNC alum, Vince Carter, making a big dunk at the All-Star Weekend 25 years ago. I come up at a time where Kobe Bryant did the dunk contest and, even Dominique Wilkins and such. I wasn't old enough to see Jordan participate in the dunk contest, but the year I was born, 88, he was very big in the dunk contest in 1988. That particular year, but the dunk contest used to have major stars. Like it was the highlight of The
I was
whole
about to say, I don't even know who was in the dunk contest this year. And even if you told me, I'm not sure if I would know the names.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. I mean, it's and LeBron James, ever since he decided he was never going to do the dunk contest in the league, never really made him participate one way or another. Every other star started to basically follow. The last big star we had through the dunk contest was Nate Robinson. That was many years back now. You want to fact check that in real time, but we haven't had no household name participate in the dunk contest because I think the whole thing was before back then the dunk contest was to elevate a brand and for the stars or the particular player. Now the concern is that the dunk contest will detract or will hurt the brand and will hurt the image, which is completely just crazy how that pendulum shifted. But I do blame not really I blame part LeBron for that, but I also blame the league for kind of catering to that. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is a part of my all-star analysis. So we've seen Steph Curry advising NBA Commissioner Adam Silver on the format changes and such. But I'm just going to go ahead and just say this here. I think Adam Silver is the worst commissioner of all the major sports in America, if not North America. Um, he has not been a great commissioner at all. We've kind of seen that year after year, just the way the league is set up now, the way the games are played, and everything like that. And I think he's catered too much to the players and such, where his predecessor, David Stern, would never allow this, quite frankly. And I wasn't always the biggest David Stern fan, especially with the NBA dress code years back. That's another thing for everybody to look up. They weren't old enough to remember where he made everybody wear shirts and ties. I didn't necessarily have a problem with that dress code policy because you should be dressed professional in your profession. But the idea was it was really just targeting basically black players, which the league is predominantly, and it was kind of done in a racist tone. I felt a lot of people had felt because it was targeting Hall of Famer Allen Iverson, as he used to go to games wearing headbands and baggy jeans and t-shirts and jerseys. Um,
Right.
and I think
And having his mom braid his hair on the sidelines.
exactly, and I think it was more aimed towards kind of it had either unconscious bias or overt bias in it, as opposed to just making sure the league was professionalized. But I don't want to get too off topic with that. But
Yeah,
I'm
let
just
me just say that I think the NBA has definitely gone downhill recently. I used to be a fan. I mean, I used to like watching NBA games, and I still do. I like sports in general, as you know, and I think a lot of the audience may know. I enjoy all types of sports, especially being from North Carolina, which is almost like the sports capital, definitely the basketball capital of the East Coast, if not the country. And so the NBA these days is just not entertaining to me. I know that all the big stars and celebrities go, and it's more like a show. I think college basketball is more interesting, honestly, even with NIL and all of that. I love watching just the different teams rise up in the ACC. You got Clemson and Louisville this year. Kansas is always around and fun to watch. Auburn and Alabama, now that's a basketball rivalry, not just football. They were the college game of the day yesterday,
I
and it
saw
was a
that.
close
That's
game.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how awesome is that? For the NBA, it just doesn't hit the same. I do like LeBron James. We've talked about that before. I like who he is, what he stands for. I think it's great that he's out there on the West Coast at the Lakers. I think it's cool that he is supportive, so supportive of his son, and that his son is now in the league. And that's about it. I just do not have. We all know how the Charlotte Hornets are. So there's nothing that gets in the Atlanta Hawks. They're decent. I have been to a Hawks game or two, and they're fun in person, but
Yeah,
watching
I've
them
been
on
to
the
a Hall of Fame in
TV.
Atlanta. I've seen it.
Well, watching those games on the TV, it's just not the same. And so, don't want to dwell on this. I don't know if you have another topic, but before our time runs out, I did want to throw this out there. Kind of an off the wall topic, but weather. It's supposed to snow again in North Carolina, I see, on Wednesday and Thursday. It's also supposed to be very cold down here in Atlanta this coming week. What do you make of that? I didn't. I didn't think we were going to have snow again this season. A lot of people said we were, so I was wrong. But what do you think's going on with Mother Nature?
Yeah, I do think it's just climate change. Let's call it like it is. I thought we were done. I thought that after we had the 70-degree weather, even though I wasn't here in North Carolina when that happened, I felt we were just going to turn the corner and it would basically early start the spring. But now it seems like we're going right back to the depths of January, all over again. So it's definitely climate change. I'm not even going to give analysis on that. I mean, I'm just going by the eye test. It's climate change.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Mother Nature is rearing her ugly head as she can sometimes do, and I think climate change or global warming, whichever you want to call it, I know those two terms are a bit distinctive, but it's definitely related to that. I mean, these weather patterns, excuse me, are just so severe and extreme in ways that they have not historically been, even with the fires out west, and then the immediate rain, which creates or created a bunch of mudslides. So I do feel bad for the people of California and specifically Los Angeles County as they continue to rebuild. But even in North Carolina, right, where we both have roots, hurricanes really hit eastern North Carolina hard. And now we have this snow coming back in mid-February. This it just doesn't happen normally, right? It's an abnormal occurrence. And I think so much of that is because of global warming and the way that we are contributing by increasing our fossil fuel usage, by polluting and not reusing, not recycling like we should. Really, we don't have a good grasp on environmental advocacy here in the United States. Now, a lot of people don't know, let me mention this quickly. The environmental justice movement started in North Carolina. It started in Warren County. And so, with Dr. Ben Chavis and others putting their lives and jobs on the line to say, hey, something is going on with the environment. And we need to understand that the environment affects Americans differently. And so, in communities of color and in poorer and rural communities, environmental realities really hit harder and are more severe. So, I just wanted to throw that out there. But how do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Environmental justice is justice for all. That's just how I personally feel on that. But we're gonna have a lot more to discuss in the weeks ahead on WeekCap. Honestly, we probably could use another 30 minutes, but we're both pressed for time. But we just had to keep marching forward ahead. We weren't able to do this yesterday, but that's going to happen from time to time and such. So we're going to try to get in as many episodes as we can. And as noted, I will be posting those addresses so we could form our own grassroots movements, a strategic one, not just doing one for clicks and views, where we can actually have actionable results and demanding accountability from the FAA and or the DHS, because we're going to need to do both right rather quickly. So thank you all for tuning in again, and we're gonna keep getting bigger and better. We even I even haven't said this to you, Greer, yet, but I want to do a live show eventually in person, whether it's here in North Carolina, here in Atlanta, or any other neutral site. So we're gonna keep on. We're gonna I'm gonna keep coming up with ideas. We're gonna have some teasers, some commercials. So it's just all we're in upward from here.
Let's do it. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great week.
You too, everybody. Take care now.